Hi, I'm Kelly with citruscycles.ca. I'm here with a Schwabing. It's made in Germany by M1 SportTechnik. It's a carbon fiber frame, beautiful step-through, really accessible, but the exciting feature to me on this bike is this incredibly powerful TQ mid-drive motor. It has 120 Newton meters of torque. To put that in perspective, most other drive units on the market max out at 70 or 75 Newton meters, so this is way more torque, and torque is what you need to get you up the hills. It also has this optional massive 1.1 kilowatt hour battery. That is more than double what most e-bikes on the market have. You can also get it with 880 watt hours, but 1,100 watt hours is an incredible amount of power to get you on really long rides. An incredibly powerful mid-drive. We've got the Gates carbon fiber belt and New Vinci continuously variable transmission. Super comfortable bike, and you can find all of the detailed specs on our website at citruscycles.ca. There you'll find the current pricing. You can order online. We can ship anywhere in Canada, the US. You can also set up an appointment to come try it here in beautiful Ladysmith, British Columbia, Canada, or you can take advantage of our Try at Home program, where we'll bring it to you anywhere on Vancouver Island or the Lower Mainland. You can find all that information, including our contact information, on the website at citruscycles.ca. And there you'll find a way to email us, call us, reach out to us on Facebook, and be happy to answer any questions that you might have or anything that I've missed in the video review. In this review, I'm going to go through all of the detailed specs, and I'm going to take you on a ride test. The bike is available in 2 different sizes and 2 different colors. This is kind of the orange cream. It's a beautiful color. And it's also available in both a street legal 32 km/h version, which means it's classified as a bicycle and can go anywhere a bike is. You don't need a license, registration, or insurance for that. Or you can get it as a speed pedelec, and that's where the assistance stops at 45 km/h instead. But in that case, here in BC at least, you need to register it as a motor vehicle, which means you need a driver's license. You need to go to ICBC, get a VIN for it, and license it as you would with a moped if you go with that 45 km/h version. So this particular version I've got here is that 45 version. So you'll notice on the ride test I'm making sure that I'm keeping my speed down, but it is possible to go faster on this bike than what you normally would be able to do. So if you're riding it on the road and you don't want to license it, definitely you'd want to get that 32 km/h version. So different sizes, different colors, different speeds, lots of different options. The other option we can do is we've gone with the Gates carbon fiber belt here, but you can get it with the chain, and it has the Enviolo N380, basically the New Vinci N380 continuously variable transmission, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Before I do that, let me just touch a little bit on the use of carbon fiber here. It is a carbon fiber frame. What that allows them to do is some really innovative frame design that maybe you wouldn't be able to do with aluminum, and of course it helps, has a bit of a dampening effect as well to smooth out the ride. So you can see the seat post here kind of looks like it's floating. This is, again, one of those bikes that maybe the pictures on the website or even in this video you think, I'm not sure about the look, but then when you come and look at it in person and ride it, and it's, wow, it's beautiful, it looks beautiful. Sorry about the dirt on the tires. I was taking it for a test ride. And it rides beautifully as well. So by using the carbon fiber, they were able to really open up this step-through space here, making it really easy to get on and off. And it also meant that they could put this massive optional 1.1 kilowatt hour battery. That's huge. It's more than twice the capacity of any other e-bike battery on the market right now. And they've managed to, by using the carbon fiber, they've kind of allowed that frame design to position the battery nice and low so that the center of gravity is really low, and still have this open space here, because a lot of times on a step-through, if you go with a really big battery or 2 batteries, there's not as much space to walk through there. So this is really nice. They've got it nice and low. You know, huge, tremendous range. Even if you ride on the level 5 and use all of that torque from the mid-drive, you're still going to have tremendous range with this bike. So speaking of the mid-drive, this is the TQ mid-drive. It's made in Germany. The whole bike is made in Germany, but the TQ also makes the mid-drive bikes for high bikes fly-ons. And M1's been doing this for quite a number of years. TQ has only recently kind of become well known because of the adoption by High Bike of the motor in some of their bikes. It's incredibly powerful, like I said, 120 Newton meters of torque. You compare that to the Bosch CX is 75 Newton meters, the Shimano Steps E8000 is 70 Newton meters, so this is a lot of power, and torque is what you need to get up the hills. Now the cool thing about this bike is, yes, you can fly up the hills. Any hill, super steep, doesn't matter. It's so easy because of that 120 Newton meters of torque. But it also is really responsive, very smooth. At first I was a little bit concerned, you know, that's a lot of torque. Am I going to cause damage on the trails? You know, is it going to be unmanageable? Am I going to feel unsafe? And it's really smooth. The power ramps up accordingly. Pedal harder, you get more power. Pedal lighter, you get less power. It's just really very responsive. I'm really pleased with how it responds. And I love having the Gates carbon fiber belt here as an option. Means I don't have to worry about oiling a chain, maintaining it. This is just kind of maintenance free, and that's combined with this Enviolo N380, used to be called Nuvinci. It's a continuously variable transmission. Everything's enclosed in that hub, so there's no adjustments. You know, sometimes that happens where you're riding along and your bike shifts gears on you and you didn't mean it to, or you shift gears and it doesn't because the cable's stretched or something's out of alignment or your derailleur hanger got banged. You don't have to worry about any of those things with the sealed unit. It's just virtually maintenance free. It also means that you can do some really neat things, like you can shift while you're stopped. So maybe that's happened to you where you're riding along, cruising along, all of a sudden you have to stop and you've got a big hill and you're in your hardest gear and now you can't get going. With the Nuvinci system here, you can see the little cyclist is heading up a hill. Well, while we're stopped, I can just tell them, you know what, we're going up a steeper hill, we need to make it easier to pedal, and now it's going to be easier to pedal. And as I get climbing that hill and I don't find that I need to be in that easy of a gear, I get to the top of the hill, I just keep twisting it here and it goes flat. So one of the cool things about the Enviolo N380 CVT is that you can shift while you're stopped, but you can also shift while you're climbing, and in fact, it is continuously variable. So as the name implies, that means there aren't a specific number of gears in here. I can basically have an infinite number of gear ratios between the highest and the lowest. So when I've got a hill with a variable grade, you know, kind of goes up and then not as steep and steep, I can just keep tweaking that as I climb to find the perfect gear ratio for pedaling. So I really like that CVT. It's super intuitive, really easy to use, allows you to shift while you're stopped, allows you to shift while you're pedaling. You can just really dial it in and find exactly where you want to be. Now with that 120 Newton meters of torque, there's a concern that when you're shifting, if you're using all the torque and you're pedaling really hard up a hill and you're shifting, it could be really hard on any drivetrain. So M1 has actually used, you can see it down in here, a hardware gear sensor. It's a shift detection mechanism. It's made in Czech Republic, and basically it detects that you're shifting and briefly cuts power to the motor so that you're not going to cause undue stress on your transmission. So it's really cool. You hardly notice it when you're riding, but you do hear it because the motor, you know, kind of is whirring and then it stops when you shift, and then it starts up again. It's very smooth, but it's really very clever because with 120 Newton meters of torque, you really could cause some damage to your drivetrain if you're not careful. So this kind of takes that for you. And that's one of the nice things about this bike, is it really is, you know, you don't have to think about a lot. You've got the CVT, which is really great, and you know, you don't have to worry about steep hills because you've got that powerful motor to just climb right up. It's also a very comfortable bike. We've got the Brooks leather saddle here. That is basically like a hammock. This is leather. Leather, of course, over time will stretch. It'll conform to your body, and it'll be your saddle, and it'll be kind of like you're just floating there. But of course, you could easily change that to something else. If you wanted to, you could put a suspension seat post in there as well. But these balloon tires are actually doing a really good job of acting like your suspension. So these are the Schwabing Big Ben. They're beautiful white tires to match kind of the cream, white, orange color scheme going on here. And we've got the reflective sidewall, which is great for safety. Because it's a balloon tire, that means there's a high volume of air at low pressure, and so I think you could probably get these down to maybe 35 psi, 40 psi. I'd have to check on the sidewall. So that means the tire is absorbing a lot of the vibrations, bumps, and things that would kind of make the bike uncomfortable to ride, maybe on gravel, that sort of thing. So it actually, basically, Schwabing in fact did a study, and they found that in an urban environment, those balloon tires are as effective as a suspension fork. Because you'll notice we do have a rigid fork here, but it is carbon fiber, so that has some dampening effects as well. Reflectors built into the side here to keep you safe, in addition to the reflective sidewalls. So in my ride test, I found that these tires do a really great job of absorbing a lot of those bumps on the road and really helping to smooth it out. The bike uses a lot of really high quality components. We've got these DT Swiss rims, which are really great rims. We've got a DT Swiss hub up front, again, really high quality. Again, along the safety and high quality line, we've got these Magura MT5 hydraulic disc brakes, which are obviously something you really want to do on an e-bike. You want to have hydraulic disc brakes to make sure that you can stop. This is amazing. This is a 203 millimeter rotor up front, and you usually only see that on mountain bikes. It's a quad piston brake, so this is super reliable, lots of stopping power, lots of modulation. It's just really nice to see that they're putting really high quality components on this bike. And that's one of the things, you know, sometimes people look at it and go, okay, you know, you look at the price and you go, well, that's kind of pricey. Well, when you consider the fact that this is a 1.1 kilowatt hour battery, you look at the quality of the DT Swiss hubs, the rims, the brakes, carbon fiber frame. We've got this great light that's integrated in here with 3 different settings on it. We've kind of got high beams and low beams. Turn the bike back on so you can see that. In fact, we've got the light built into the rear rack here. Let me turn the bike on. That's just the power button here. And so the bike does turn itself off after time if you're not riding it, to preserve the battery life. So you can see my battery is fully charged, and you can check that while the bike is off. And so you can see we've got this nice bright LED at the back here, and because this is the speed pedelec version of the bike, when I pull the brake lever, we'll see if we can show that in the video, it actually brightens up, which is really cool. There's a light here because in some countries you need to have a license plate if you have the high-speed bike, so that lights up that. And our kickstand here, because this is the speed version of the bike, does have this, this is a requirement in Europe, where when you lift the bike up, the kickstand automatically goes up, so you're not going to be riding with your kickstand down. So yeah, lots of attention to safety. We've got the mirror as well, that is another regulatory requirement. And we've got a rack here that's going to let you bring stuff along, because on a bike like this with a battery like that, you can be able to do really long rides. We've got these beautiful SKS fenders, well attached. I haven't heard them you know, rattling around, which is nice. They're plastic, so they are quite silent. Let me show you how the TQ system works. Coming up to the top here, we've got our display, and on the display you can see the battery life, current odometer, current speed, and the level of assistance we're in. So over here on the left, I've got up and down buttons that adjust that. So level 1. Level 1, I should mention, is an economy mode. So it does 2 things. It uses the lowest level of assistance, and it also reduces your maximum speed. So if I don't know how you do this, but with a 1.1 kilowatt hour battery, I can't imagine you needing to be in economy mode. But if you really want to preserve your battery life, that'll actually minimize your reduce your normal top speed. The reason for that is that at higher speeds, you use more battery because of air resistance. So when you go slower, your usage is more efficient. So most people are gonna, if they want to preserve battery life, maybe they'll ride on level 2, because then that doesn't restrict the top speed, it just gives you less power. You can do level 3, 4, and all the way up to 5, which is super powerful for the hills. We've got another button on the remote here, so we've got the up and down to choose levels of assistance. And down on the bottom here we have a mode button that kind of cycles through the information up here. So there's our trip counter, there's our average speed, there's our maximum speed, we've got the odometer there as well. So lots of information. Oh, and we've got a calculation. Here we go, distance to go. So that tells me how much further I can go. This is not accurate at this point at the bike. I do need to ride the bike and completely discharge the battery and charge it up for it to kind of learn what its range will be. And so once I've done that once, then that'll be a little bit more accurate. But it's just handy having that, so you know exactly how much further you can go before you run out of battery, in addition to the battery gauge that's there. I should mention, and you may notice this in the video here, I'll try to show you both the button and the display. When I press the button, there's a slight delay. You can see that I'm pressing between when it actually changes on the screen, and that actually is a little bit of a delay with the motor as well. So I've noticed that when riding, and as long as you're aware of it, and you know, because the first time I pressed it and I didn't feel anything happen, so I pressed it again thinking that I didn't press it hard enough, but in fact it did receive the signal. It's just a slight delay that you might not be used to. It's not a big deal, doesn't impact on your riding, but it's good to be aware of. So that's the display up here. This is, I think, the same kind of system Roll-Off is using with their eShift. So it's a nice, very comfortable. You can actually feel the up and down a little bit in it. There are indentations there. Nice rise on the bars here, the Ergotech level 5 stem with a nice rise on it as well to put you in a really very comfortable riding position. I forgot to point out the light does have a side cutout here, so it's showing side illumination to keep you safe at night, and the rear light has that as well as those reflective sidewalls, making it a really safe bike. Also super comfortable, very powerful. The pedals that they've included with the bike, I actually quite like them, but of course you could easily change them if you wanted. They are wide platform pedals with some kind of nubs on here to keep your foot from sliding off if you're riding in the rain. Certainly this bike would do quite well in the rain. You've got the fenders, these Big Ben Plus, or these Big Ben tires work really well in wet conditions, in gravel. The only thing they're not really great for is deep mud, because there's no knobs on it, but you know, you're not likely to be going mountain biking with this bike. If you do want to go mountain biking, M1 has the Schwabing, which you can find a video review of on our website, and that uses that same TQ motor with that amazing amount of torque, the same battery in fact, but is more of a mountain bike. This is more of a comfort-oriented cruiser bike. Be great for long rides with that massive battery, and great for climbing hills with that incredibly powerful motor. Hopefully I've covered everything. I'm super excited about the bike, and when I get excited about bikes, sometimes I kind of go off on tangents or miss something, but do feel free to reach out with any questions you have on our website. That's at citruscycles.ca. Well, this TQ motor is very impressive. I'm on the level 3, and it gives you lots of assistance, lots of torque, but it's very smooth, very responsive. So I stop pedaling and it stops. I pedal harder, I get more power from it. You know, exactly all the things that you want. It's really very impressive. Starting out there, lots of power. As soon as I put some force on the pedals to get going, a lot of times people ask me about a throttle. And really it's not necessary on this bike, because as soon as you put pressure on the pedals, you're going to get the assistance and you're going to be able to start right away. So although it's, you know, super powerful, a lot more power than most other mid-drive motors on the market, it's still smooth, responsive. Got a bit of a hill here on level 3. Level 3 is just fine, lots of power. You can hear the noise. It's a little bit noisier than some of the other drives I find, or maybe not necessarily noisier, just a different, maybe a lower pitch, kind of a less of a humming and more of a whirring perhaps. But you know, in level 3 here, definitely getting lots of power. I'm not too worried about needing to use level 5, that's for sure. Okay, so I'll try to keep talking about the motor, but I need to pay attention to the rest of the features of the bike as well. Obviously the motor is a big standout feature, but handling wise, you know, it's really very solid. I'll do some speed audible tests some more in a little bit, but right now I'm not really detecting any problems with that at all. Very solid, very comfortable riding position, quite upright, making it easy to see where you're going and puts less strain on your upper body. And some rough pavement here, broken pavement, and these balloon tires are doing a really good job of it. You know, the carbon fiber frame is a little bit more forgiving than a aluminum as well as we go over the bumps, and so I'm okay with the lack of suspension fork for the purpose, you know, that you're going to be riding this bike on stuff like this. You know, with a lot of bumps and broken pavement, the tires are doing quite well. It's a bit wet out this morning, so I'm thankful to have these fenders. They're doing a great job. I don't hear them rattling at all, which is nice. And I'm onto some gravel. And again, no problem with these tires. They're going to get a little bit dirty, which is unfortunate. They're such beautiful tires. I'll have to give the bike a good wash when I get back. They've done a really nice job with the integration. And yeah, on the mud here, on the gravel, I'm going to do a little bit of swerving, quick braking. Yeah, no problem. They're really quite good. Now you can probably hear that, and this takes a little bit of getting used to, but you know, I've only ridden this bike a couple times and I'm used to it already. When you shift, and this is the New Vinci or the Inviolo continuously variable transmission, which is great by the way, when you shift, the motor will very briefly cut out in order to facilitate that shift. With any drivetrain, if you're under a really heavy load, especially with the amount of torque this bike can produce, it can cause problems with your drivetrain. So it's nice with the shift detection here that as soon as I shift, it briefly cuts the power to make that shift smoother. So you will hear that more than anything. You can feel it a little bit. At higher speeds you really don't. But you can definitely hear the motor cutting out. It doesn't seem to bother me at all. I thought it'd be a little bit weird, and I guess maybe it is a little bit weird, but it's not bothersome. Nice brakes. The Magura work quite well. Lots of modulation in them, which is good because on a bike like this you can get going pretty quick. No problem in handling tight situations, difficult corners, that sort of thing. Try some grass here. No concerns at all about how the bike's going to respond to any of this. So it's really well suited towards, you know, not only commuting and trekking, but a little bit of light trail riding and really anything you want to throw in. Good for mountain biking. So I've got a couple of hills coming up, a little one, and then we'll go under the tunnel, and then we've got a relatively steep one with this 120 newton meters of torque. It's going to be really easy getting up those hills. Right now I'm even just on level 3, not on level 5, and no problem at all. You can hear the motor. It's a little bit louder than some of the other drives on the hills, but I guess that's part of how they can produce so much power. So that hill, you know, that's kind of one of the things I've really noticed about riding this bike, is that the hills just feel flat. Literally. You really don't notice a difference between going up a hill and going on flat when you have it on a high level of assistance. Alright, so for this next hill, I'll put her up to 5. There we go. And hopefully the GPS will show you the grade on the right there. I think quite a bit above 20%. Now this is a hill, you know, that I test a lot of bikes on, and pretty much every bike can make it up this hill. It's not that the hill's impossible. Really the difference between all the different motors is how quickly you get up there and how much you have to work at it. So I'm in level 5, not in my easiest gear ratio on the New Vinci, and I'm not having to work very hard at all in managing to maintain a 16-kilometer-an-hour pace. And again, it just doesn't feel like a hill. I'm actually accelerating up this hill, which is incredible. Okay, we don't need it on level 5 anymore. Yeah, this is definitely the easiest climb I've ever done on that hill. It's pretty incredible. actually really like this mirror. I might try to get one for myself. So I was pedaling up to the 45 kilometer an hour, 46, 47 kilometers an hour coming down that hill, and I didn't find that my cadence was too fast. So it's nice to know I could probably maybe even go up to 50 without having to spin too quickly. So they've really geared it right, because even on that steep hill, I didn't have to go into my easiest gear, so it tells me I can still climb an easier hill, or a harder hill than that one, and still be all right. But at the same time, I can, you know, pedal pretty quickly if I want to. I imagine part of that is because they use the same bike as the Speed Pedelec version, where it tops out at 45 kilometers an hour. And so in order to be able to do that and maintain a steady cadence, they do need to have that pretty big, I'm going to call it chain ring up front, but I guess it's a belt, so belt ring. Okay, I've got another big, long, not too steep, but kind of steep climb coming up here. So I'm going to put it on 5 in anticipation of that. Alright, so I was able to pedal over 55 going down that hill. I think I had almost 60, and the bike felt very comfortable, very safe. You know, sometimes you get up to higher speeds like that and the bike starts to feel like you need to slow down to stay in control, but I didn't have any of those issues at all. No speed wobble or anything like that. These balloon tires give you lots of traction, lots of control as well. Again, you know, you climb those hills and you just don't notice they're hills. It's pretty incredible. So the advantage of having all that torque, obviously you're getting up the hills faster. That's useful. So if you're a commuter and you've got a lot of hills like that, what that's going to do is it's going to get you home faster or get you to work faster. Because sure, yeah, I can make it up these hills no problem with any of the other bikes. It takes longer, and it can take more work. With this bike, you have the choice. If you really want to work at it, wow, you can fly up those hills no problem. You can get to work or home really quickly. If you're on your way home from work and you're thinking, it's been a long day, I really don't want to push myself, you'll still get home faster than the other bikes and without as much work. So it's nice because you really have the choice. You can push really hard if you want, and it's very responsive that way. So even here on the hill, as I push harder, I'm getting more power. If I spin lighter, it's a little bit less. So I can still work at it if I want to, but if I don't want to, I don't have to. All right, well, that was, again, probably a record for me for that hill. I'll move it back down to 3. I don't need that much power now that I'm on the flat. So I'm going to take you on another really steep climb just to show you the power of this drive unit. If you have any questions, you want to come try it yourself, head over to our website at supercycles.ca. Okay, I've got a really steep hill coming up here, one of the steeper ones in Ladysmith. I'm hoping the GPS will show you the grade. It's not only steep, but very long, and certainly most of the e-bikes I test, I can make it up that hill, but on most of them I'm having to work fairly hard, put it in the highest level assistance, put it in the easiest gear, and definitely, you know, you don't necessarily need a bike like this to make it up there, but this is going to make it way easier. In fact, this is a hill that other than testing bikes, I usually avoid it because I don't have to work that hard, I suppose. And I don't even like driving up this hill, it's so steep. In fact, in the winter, if we get ice or snow, they actually close the hill. It's not safe for the snow removal equipment to go up and down the hill, so they close it off and kids go sliding on it. So it just gives you an idea of, you know, kind of how steep we're looking at. So I've got it in level 5, and wow, it's really easy. You know, not even having to put it in my easiest gear ratio on the DaVinci system. I'm not having to pedal really hard. It's just, honestly, it's like I'm on flat. Like I'm pedaling as hard as I would on a flat section of the road, and I'm going along at about 12 kilometers an hour. That's incredible. That's what all that torque does for you, is it just makes it, like if you were, you know, riding up and down hills like this every day, you'd have no problem doing it with this bike. You put it in level 5, put it in easier gear, and you know, you just have to spin your legs and you're doing just fine. It's quite incredible. So for the detailed specs, current pricing to order online, any questions you have, head over to our website at citruscycles.ca.